I left school at the end of 1932, and I had 12 months in Melbourne, and during that time I learned to fly at Essendon, and I learned to fly on a Gypsy Moth, and I got a licence in 1934, the same week as Peter Gibbs and Arthur Shutt. I thought there was going to be a war, and I wanted to be a fighter pilot in England, and it was a long time after that the war started. And when the war started, I thought I'd be called up straight away, but I wasn't, so I put an application in, and I was knocked back, reserved occupation. So that was a bit of a pill for a while. So then I put another one in, 300 hours flying, and they said do an instructor's course and stay in Australia for the rest of the war. So I replied to that and said I had a job in the land. So another one, I joined the Empire Training Scheme and went through on 12 course at Summers. Sir Thomas White was the CEO. They decided to make, I couldn't tell anybody I'd flown before, otherwise I'd have been scrubbed, I suppose. So I was made a pilot, and I learnt to fly at Essendon, on the first course on Wackett. From there, we went to Wagga, and we had a course there. And then I don't think they knew what to do with us, so we went there. From then on, we went to Nil for a night navigation course. From then on, we went to Sale for a fighter course. And from then on, they decided to make Army co-op squadrons. They formed 4 and 5 Squadron. And 5 Squadron was at Laverton, and 4 Squadron was at Camden. We didn't know which one of those was going to go to New Guinea, but 5 Squadron went to Toowoomba, and we went to Kingaroy. From Kingaroy, we went to New Guinea. But whilst at Camden, the midget subs went into Sydney Harbour, and the CO came into my hut one morning. Early in the morning, there was a lot of noise with sirens and things going on, and the CO came in and he said, "The Japs are bombing Sydney. Your airplane's bombed up. I want you to be 150 miles out to sea and look for the mother sub." Well, we'd never seen live bombs ever, and Camden didn't have a flare path. So anyway, I had an observer, Pat Mulligan, and we went off, and we were 150 miles out to sea at daylight. Couldn't find anything, but that was the only time that, it was the first time 4 Squadron got into operations, proper operations during the war. We got strafed. We were at Horn Island for a little while too, and we got strafed there by the Japs. But when we went to Berry Strip, it was a full length but only half width, and there was a 6-inch drop between one side of the strip to the other. Well, Moresby, the first job we did at that time, the militia, the Aussies weren't back from overseas, and the militia were fighting the Japs at Buna Gona, and there were no maps, proper maps. So the first job we did was a photographic map of the Buna Gona area, 26 miles by 16, at 6,000 feet. So the artillery works on maps, and so they had something to work on. Then we went over to. No aeroplanes were over the Owen Stanley at night time. Our fighters came back after 5 o'clock, and the Japs came in and they controlled that area. So we were the first aeroplanes. We had 3 aeroplanes, I think, at a forward operational base at Popondetta. And we flew over the Japs all day long, so they couldn't move. And we also had 2 batteries of 4 25-pounders each, and we registered 6 or more targets. Sugar 60, they were sugars. That was their name, Sugar. And if something was going on there, we'd call up the artillery, tell them, give them a direction. Sugar 60, drop 200, left 400, and then 1 round smoke, and then we'd correct that. So the Japs couldn't move much in the daylight. I mean, we'd either strafe them or dive bomb them or direct a 25-pounders, the artillery onto them. So that was our job all day long. And I was flying one morning early, and I landed, and I could hear the dogfight on top, but just when Jack Archer shot down the Zero, or Zeke, whatever it was, and there was a photographer at Dobodura, and I took him over to Popondetta to photograph Jack Archer when he shot that. So I was flying that at that time. And after things got quite quiet at Dobodura and Popondetta, then the battle for Wow started, and that was pretty serious. We'd been there for a day, I think, and they flew up 4 25-pounders, and they were shooting the Japs in open sights, just looking through the barrel. There, the Jap battalion, I think, came up from Sanananda Point, up through the forest, and came down to one Germany. They were going to Black Cat Camp. Now, there was Ley, and then the mountain range, and then there was, on that side of the mountain range there was a rainforest, and the Japs had a camp there, Black Cat, and you couldn't see it. It was very, very difficult to see. And one morning I was flying early, and somebody had been making a fire to boil a billy, and the smoke was coming up through the trees. So I found a camp, and it was very, very difficult to see. They could see us, but we couldn't see them. And our air liaison officer, Danny Daniels, he organised the bow fighters, and the next day 6 bow fighters came up and met me at 2:30 in the afternoon over Wow. And I strafed that camp with tracer bullets. I did 2 runs with tracer bullets, and the 6 bow fighters followed me in.